share your faith. You are called to share your faith. God has given us a co-mission with Him to share our faith with others, to share about Jesus. So let's just take that word, share our faith. Let's take that out for a second. To share Jesus with others. Now, we're not asking you to share a fake Jesus. God is not asking you to make up some story about Jesus. God is not asking you to all of a sudden go and make disciples if you don't even know what that means or understand that. But He's asking you to share what you have seen and heard from God. So we talked about this in the very beginning, that we need to be noticing and recognizing God. So what has God been doing in your life? What has God been actively... Can you share something that God has done in your life recently? All right? Because God is active. God is active. God is moving. God is trying to communicate. And sometimes we got to decompress all this stuff. Think about this. If you fell in love with somebody, perhaps you are in love with somebody, but let's go back to those romantic days when you were just in love on cloud nine, okay? And you couldn't help but sharing with your friends how amazing this person is that you met, right? It just bubbled and came out of you. You know, that's what it ought to be with God. That we're so in love with God that it comes out where it's not a job to do it. But if it is a job to share your faith, then perhaps we're not spiritually healthy, okay? If it is a job and a duty and just tiresome to share it. Now, can I say this? To start initiating this, to start initiating getting out, there will be some things to overcome, but that's healthy. There will be some trepidation oftentimes to share your faith with somebody else. Now, some of you might be thinking of some street preaching or going door to door. All those count, but it's much more than that. It could just be your coworker. It could just be someone that you are called to pray for. There are many people that I know right now that don't know Christ, and I've taken the opportunity to say, hey, can I pray for you? Knowing very well that they could say no. If I just take a moment and try to pray with them for whatever their need is, I don't necessarily preach to them God, but I look for the doors that might be open where God can come in and build the stronghold of His kingdom in their life. Because I know that stronghold leads to life and life more abundantly. And so I want to give that to others. It's like God gives us $1 million, then He gives you a second $1 million to give to somebody else. If you were giving $1 million to somebody, would you be afraid that they would reject that $1 million and say no? Like, how silly would it be for someone to reject $1 million that they're giving to you? Right? That would just be ridiculous. Yet we kind of do that in our mind. We automatically assume people are going to reject us or reject Jesus. But here's the question. How good is He to you? Do we recognize how good He is? Are we tapping into His grace? Are we ourselves alive and full of joy because of our love relationship with God? Are we receiving? Because if we are, then that's going to bubble over. But if we're not, then we might not want to be sharing that because perhaps we're not spiritually healthy. Perhaps there's hurt in our life that we still need healing from. When we come back and we need to receive from God and receive His healing touch, and then we're not going to have a problem sharing our faith. It will bubble out of us. But at the same time, I want to encourage us. Sometimes we just need to change our focus a little bit and have that outward focus. To pray, ask God, God, is there someone you want me to share my faith with today? Having that outlook on life that wherever you go, you're ready for an answer. You're ready to give an answer. You're prepared and ready to share your faith. Now again, sharing Jesus, sharing what it is that you've seen and heard. You know, I look in the Bible, and that's something that I noticed. In fact, in 1 John 1, verse 3, it talks about that which we have seen and heard we declare to you, that you also may have fellowship with us. And truly our fellowship is with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ. Okay? What is it saying here? It's saying that which we have seen and heard we declare to you. We're not asking you to lie, to make something up. That's not what the Bible is saying here. It's what you've seen and heard, or the communication from God that you have received. However you have perceived it, to share that. Okay? And it's essentially being a witness, right? Being a witness. It talks about that in the Word, being a witness, right? If someone is a witness on the witness stand, they're just saying what they've seen and heard. They're not supposed to make up any stories, right? They're not supposed to say something that is not true, just what they've seen and heard. So what have you seen and heard God do in your life? Share that with somebody else, because that is sharing your faith. That is sharing Jesus. You don't have to lead them to Jesus as far as they have to pray the prayer, the prayer of salvation, or the sinner's prayer, however we call it. That's not necessarily your job, but if God's saying for you to do that, do it. But if He's not, Keep leading them to Jesus. Keep talking about Jesus. Help them to see His goodness. If He's been good in your life, why not share that with somebody else? It is something free that you have to give, and you only receive more of God's joy when you do that.